Welcome to Moonbase 2.
Hello everyone, it's Mikey again with an interview. We haven't done one of these in a while, and this is quite, what's the term I'm looking for? Fortuitous, well-timed, on the nose. As Transformers Cyberverse wrapped up not too long ago. It aired in the UK, finished airing in the UK there, about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, And I believe it's still airing in the US. Season 3, which after it finished we were then told was the last season, and I got very upset because I have many positive things to say about Season 3. But I managed to get hold of someone from the show for a bit of a chat. So with me today is Mae Catt, who is one of the staff writers for the series, and she's worked on some other things of interest. Mae, how are you?
I'm doing very well, given, the circumstances.
Yes, as in your case, sitting in sunny California, which, I'm so horrible to be stuck in, and me sitting in cold Ireland, as you can see in the camera, in the dark, in the middle of the night. Like a hermit.
I am extremely... Yeah. I understand how extremely fortunate I am. But still.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, I'm great. Can I still go outside now? No?
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. My fiance and I have been riding our bikes in the first time in years. And even then, there's still, because it's sunny California, everybody is still going outside. And though we are also doing the same thing, I think we're all simultaneously judging everybody else around us. Like, how dare you're walking outside? I'm trying to have a bike ride.
Excuse me, 2 meters away, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people are finally starting to get that at the very least. If they've got to go outside, at least we're a little bit more distant. Though I did see some people shooting a short film yesterday, and I got really mad. It was just the most stereotypical thing you could imagine happening in Los Angeles as the world crumbles around you, and that's what, enraged me. I was like, we gotta be better than this.
We're doing a short art piece, do you mind? Mm-hmm. Everyone on this film crew is actually sick, it's part of it. Yeah. Well, here everyone's doing the social distancing thing, but if you just watch for a couple of minutes, you can slowly see them start to come together.
No.
And but if people are talking in the street, they're just like, nah.
They were so close.
Yeah. But yeah, so Mae, give a sort of brief introduction to yourself, what your background is and stuff like that.
Sure. My name's Mae Catt. I am a screenwriter based in Los Angeles, and you would know me from Transformers Cyberverse. I think my Twitter little bio says I like to write horror movies and cartoons, and I think that sums me up pretty good. I grew up in LA. My singular goal was to become a writer, and it's happened. And I am very thankful that it has not only happened, but kind of my level of becoming a professional happened with Transformers and the Transformers fandom. I've been very fortunate.
So yeah, I saw that you'd done, I was just looking, you'd done some small short films, and sort of you've done some Marvel Rising, an episode of Young Justice.
Yeah.
But so you would say Cyberverse was your sort of your breakout moment.
I think it was certainly Cyberverse was the first time I was paid consistently as a writer, because it was a staff job. So I actually would get to luckily go to a room every week and continue writing. Young Justice is a fun story, but that was also a freelance gig, so it was a single episode. And the short films are probably... Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. Just for someone who doesn't know, what's the difference between sort of a freelance and a staff writer?
So freelance is you are brought into a show that's already in motion and already in production, and they will utilize your writer skills for a single episode, or maybe, a couple. But for staff writing, I was for Cyberverse, I was there in Hasbro every week for a little over a year, getting to write continuously as a group with everybody else.
So Also, what's the horror Because when I was doing a little research, I saw some things. I just saw a bunch of stuff with dates.
Yeah.
We're just like,
so I love
did
that
something
you're looking
happen
at my,
and she got lost?
You're looking at my IMDb because I was going to say those are probably all like my high school and college films. Because I knew if I, way back in 2009, 2008, you could get a Comic-Con professional badge based on if you had an IMDb or not. So I, as a high schooler, kind of conned my way into getting some of my short films onto IMDb, and I got a pro badge out of that. And I like to think now that I've kind of grown into this pro badge that I've had for a while.
So you're a scam artist? Is that what I'm hearing here?
I am a survivor. But yeah, no, I was always into genre and be it mostly horror or sci-fi. And when I say horror, I'm not into the 80s slasher. I'm much more like body horror, like a Cronenberg, The Thing, or The Fly. That's kind of my wheelhouse that I like to exist in. And I sort of fell into animation a little by accident. I had reps, luckily, kind of out of college. And they repped me off of a horror spec feature I had. So a spec being I wrote it by myself for myself, essentially. It wasn't for a studio. And so they knew, so it was they knew I was live action genre features. And then one day, years ago, there was a release in Variety or something about how Hasbro Allspark Pictures wanted to reboot the G.I. Joe franchise, but the phrase they used was they wanted to reboot it the millennial way. And I called up my reps.
Millennial way.
Yeah, I called up my reps and I'm like, look, I'm the only millennial I know who gives a shit about G.I. Joe. Could I please get a meeting? And I was only 24, 25, so no way in hell was this big studio gonna give me a tentpole movie franchise like that. But God bless those execs, they were so sweet, and they just let me talk about Cobra Commander for an hour, which was amazing. And at the end of it, they, at the wrap up of the meeting, it was well, we don't really have a place for you here, but we can send you over to the animation side for sure. And that's where Cyberverse kind of that ball started to get rolling. And luckily, I had gotten a Young Justice episode before that, because otherwise I would not have had any examples of me writing in animation. And at the time, I couldn't even give them the episode because it hadn't aired yet. But they had to just go off my word that I had written on Young Justice, and Greg Weisman, the creator of that show, apparently liked me enough. So those two things conjoined got me onto Cyberverse.
Well, I mean, if you can get Greg Weisman behind you, that's no great failure in life.
It's true. I mean, I don't know how long these episodes are, but there's a great story behind meeting Greg Weisman, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
If you'll indulge me for just a moment. I was, like I said, one of those kids who just kind of all I knew that I wanted to do was write. And so I started writing screenplays when I was 14. They're all terrible. They're god awful, but God bless them, that's how I got to be where I am now. And I had won a high school screenwriting competition, and one of the prizes was meeting professionals in practice general meetings. And general meetings are exactly that. It's just you're meeting the exec to be this is who I am, and this is what my deal is. And I met Greg when I was 14. And then years later, 10 years later, I was bumming around Warner Brothers Animation and kind of wiggled my way into getting a meeting with him. And it was right before Young Justice was kicking up. And he had 10 years had passed, and he totally remembered me and gave me another professional shot to write on Young Justice.
Oh, that's great.
It was amazing.
Whether he remembered you and said, I remember you, or he remembered you and just said, oh no.
He actually, I entered the room and he was like, hey May, how have you been? And I'm like, Greg, I've been amazing. How are you? It was very surreal.
I can imagine. I've had a couple of moments like that in my life, but so you get onto you somehow con Greg Weisman onto getting you into Young Justice.
I continue conning everybody.
You use Cobra Commander to con into Transformers.
Yes, I have conned yourself included into this podcast.
Yes, I'm not actually. This isn't a podcast. I'm just telling you now. I'm just bored.
No, conned by the cons.
Listen, at the moment it's the only con going on, but
delightful.
Mm. So Transformers Cyberverse kicks off. What was sort of the process of developing the show? Because less so I'd say in season 1, but very much from season 2 on, I would describe it as probably the bravest Transformers series.
Thank you.
Because I would also describe it as a series that gives zero fucks. And very much it's Transformers series tend to fall into two broad strokes, which is we're aiming at a younger audience, and that's great, and if you're watching, that's fine, but it's not for you. Or it's one where we're writing a cartoon, we're assuming a lot out of our younger viewers, and we know full well that people are watching this who are lonely in their 50s. But so for anyone who asks, I'm not in my 50s and I'm not lonely. I'm fine. I've got a dog. So how did this show develop as it did? Because like I said, it's very different from anything else.
Well, I'll say for one, I joined in season 2, and the staff writer before me was Kate Leth, who moved on to other things, and so thankfully there was an opening for me. So I'm not entirely sure what the initial process was for season 1. I do know that I can attribute much of the genius of season 2 and 3 to the entirety of the room, but most importantly, our story editor, Randolph Hurd. And I think if I had to guess the politics, because of course I'm just a lowly writer, I don't know all that is happening, but I would imagine that once season 1 was over and everyone, including like our executives and the toy side of it, once everybody got into a groove and kind of knew each other, there was a little more trust established between everybody, so that when the writers' room led by Randolph could come up with these, honestly just insane things, the people on the other end who could say yes or no were more inclined to say, yeah, go for it. And that's how we get to where we are. Honestly, I think part of that trust was not only the success that was season 1, but also the fact that we were all so unapologetically nerdy in our own ways, the toy people, the execs, and us. Like, I remember listening in on a call with the toy guys and having this sensation of like, oh, they're just like us. They also really just love Transformers.
Did you have any background with Transformers before, or was this kind of your entryway? Or
it was yes and no. I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan, or rather, I should just say Cobra. But there was enough crossover.
You're on the right show. My co-host would love you.
Awesome. I saw his handle and I was like, Andy.
He's trouble. He's trouble. He's a terrible human being. But
there was enough crossover in just, those two fandoms that I had enough knowledge of Transformers that I could tell you, the characters and the basic gist. And I had grown up on Beast Wars and have an undying love for beast machines, regardless of what anybody else says. So those were kind of where I was coming from. And I had read bits of More Than Meets the Eye before getting the job. So it was like, it was a thing that was present in my life, but not all-consuming.
Something you maybe dip a toe in every now and then.
Yeah. Come see what's going on, come out.
And now you will. I saw you were invited to TFCon Los Angeles, was it?
Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah.
That was also in part due to some fans pointing out, like, hey, you might need a couple more female professionals, would be really cool. And they ended up tagging me, and I was like, look, I live 5 minutes away. I would not mind. It would be my sincere pleasure.
And what was that like? Because I've been to conventions which are Transformers only, and I sometimes see guests a bit like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was my first panel. It just beat WonderCon by like a month. It was my first like actually sitting up and doing a panel, and I was so lucky to be with Margaret Scott and just having a blast. And like,
if you're ever talking to her again, don't believe a word she says about me. I'm just going to tell you that now.
Got it. But it's interesting, and I've spoken about this amongst my friends, and I hope that I don't offend any in the audience to say this, but in my observations of the fandom, there is definitely the angry older audience, and then there are younger people. But I fell right into the loving arms of the queer community that is a part of Transformers. That is, as far as I can tell, built up very much by the IDW one continuity.
Mm.
So I felt I fell into their loving embrace for much of TFCon and just sort of my internet interactions with the fandom. But TFCon was a beautiful moment of getting to see those people for the first time in person, as well as older fans. Like, I think it was actually an older gent who asked me for my autograph. And it was so funny because Margaret had a table and she was like, "Oh, do you want to just hang out for a while at the table?" I was like, "Absolutely." And somebody like came up to me and asked me for an autograph, and it was the first time it ever had happened. I didn't think it was gonna happen. I gave my like sloppy signature and then looked at the guy and was like, "Can I take a picture of this?" And I like took a picture of my signature like in his book. And he was so sweet. He was just like, "Yeah, welcome." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I guess, yeah, I'm now into this thing. Oh, geez." So,
yeah, you're never leaving.
It was a beautiful moment of, like, it dawning on me how my participation in this was actually going to affect my life. Because, it obviously, like, I understood how I was going to affect Transformers. I hadn't realized what Transformers was going to do to affect me. Yeah.
It does tend to have that effect on people. It's an interesting fandom and so community when you see the different aspects of it. Like, I think it's very interesting. You pointed out the queer community that's developed largely, or at least I don't know, developed's not the right word, but certainly like has been publicized and brought into the public set largely by the More Than Meets the Eye comic. And to a much lesser degree the Robots in Disguise one that was running alongside it. So to give me sort of a walkthrough of how an episode of Transformers Cyberverse was developed.
Sure. Gosh, I hope if the guys listen to this and I get something wrong, I'm so sorry. But the guys being the writers' room guys, not just men in general. I don't apologize to men in general. How dare? Okay, so
I'm sorry.
We would generally get a very loose feeling for a season. So like for chapter 2 or season 2, it was very easy to understand, like, we really do want to open up with a 2-parter. We want to set it on a fun setting like the moon, and kind of the idea behind the 2-parter was to culminate all of G1 kind of in 2 episodes. So it's Autobots versus Decepticons. It's in a fun place. There's a big evil doomsday device, yada yada yada. And just kind of understanding, like, okay, if we go the route of like Starscream getting really messed up and letting him defect into his own third party, and we know we're still on the journey for the Allspark, he should get the Allspark, and just kind of getting a rough spine of what the show needs, that season needs to be. And then we'll dive deeper into like individual episodes of like, what do we need to accomplish in each episode. And also, like, we technically weren't supposed to be a serialized show, but it just sort of happened naturally. So at the same time as developing plot-wise what you need to accomplish, is also just sort of like, what is this individual episode also about? And what do we need to accomplish to make Brand happy, to make execs happy, to make ourselves happy? And then once individual episodes are in a better shape, that's when we start to kind of beat out each one, doing very rough beats where it would be the 5 of us. Yeah, 5 of us in a room. And just, having our heated discussions and fun debates about what we wanted and what we thought was the right way to go, beating them out. And then from beating those episodes out, they would get assigned to a writer, be it one of us in the room or a freelancer that would come in every once in a while, and we would outline. And a writer would run off and go outline on their own. We'd come back. It was a very unique situation because the room was omnipresent throughout the process, which isn't necessarily always the case. Once the outline was completed by the writer, we would look at it together and go through it, then send it to execs, and then repeat for the actual first draft of the script. The writer would run off, do a first draft, bring that first draft to the room, and we would go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And then there you go. A show got made somehow.
Yeah. I was just going over like the episodes that like you said, you're down as staff writer for quite a lot of episodes, but when we look at the ones you've actually written in season 2, say, there was a certain focus on a certain plain boy,
Yeah.
And also a certain focus on, which kind of makes sense given your background, on the episodes that kind of would have disturbed young children, I'd say.
Yeah, I
like
swear
the one where...
that is purely coincidental. That was absolutely.
That...
I know that's hard to believe, but if you'll notice how season 2 breaks out, I think it goes Randolph, Gavin, Zach, myself. That was the order in which things went. And so it was purely coincidental that 204, 208, and 212 were going to be Starscream-centric and horror-centric. And, like, shout out to Gavin Hignite. He's also, like, a huge horror fan. So, like, we were really clicking in that way. But yeah, I was very lucky. And it was so great, too. I remember the moment we realized I was going to get 212, I Am the Allspark. Because it wasn't like certain, because it was that episode was kind of moving around. It could have been 213, it could have been 211, and it landed on 212. And I had to fight how excited I was because I didn't want the guys to tease me or take it away from me because I was too happy about it. So I remember sitting in my chair watching like 212 get written by my name and we're determining what that is and just being like, oh, that's cool.
It's fine now. If I have to write it, it's fine, it's grand.
It's cool. And 212 got split into 212 and 213, so that's why I wrote 204, 208, 212, and 213. And then the guys took over for like the latter half of season 2.
So where did your ideas come from those episodes? Because especially like I Am the Allspark, that I would say that was kind of the tipping point for season 2 in some ways, as it's going like, oh, okay, it doesn't care anymore, does it? It's just going to do its own thing.
Yeah, no,
because there's so many dead bodies in that.
Yeah, we could not believe that like everybody on, above us was totally willing to be like, yeah, go ahead, because it makes sense. Like you look at and like this is not entirely on me. This was absolutely, the structure of season 2 is absolutely a group effort. And even though I have a singular credit on a certain episode, it was written by the group. Though I will take certain credit for beats and dialogue in an episode, but whatever. But it was like, I think around 208 when we really were like leaning into Starscream basically being a cult leader, because I remember like I threw around the term he's part of a jet cult, I kept calling it, and the word cult kept getting thrown around, so that was like, that really helped us lean into like, that's what needs to happen. But once we got into 208 where like you really kind of see the craziness of what that is manifesting in him, like that was a moment where we were like, we gotta keep going. Like naturally speaking, the story needs to keep escalating, at least on his side, until he does what all cult leaders do and turns on his followers and then proceeds to do exactly what he says, which is like, I'm going to return everybody to the Allspark. It's going to happen.
But no, like I love those episodes. They like where Starscream's like naming all the little scraplets after the 13. It's just like,
it's so
he's
good.
gone off the deep end. And not even the craziest thing he does in this show. But not by a goddamn long shot.
For sure.
So that's an idea. Where did that idea come from?
The scraplet?
Because that's just, where like, when it happened, I was just like,
I think a lot, and this might be true of, I'm not going to speak about other Transformer shows, but I would think it's a similar process, because it's a simultaneous moment of creation as writers where you're like, what do I want to see? What would be fun for not only us, but the audience, or rather what would be fun for the audience, but also us. And but you're also Transformers. So there are, of course, not limitations. There are requirements that you need to achieve to make the execs and toy people happy. Which is, I don't want to make that sound like a bad thing. It's not at all. It's actually a wonderful tool as a writer to be given goals to meet. It's a wonder, like through that, like, oh wait, no, I don't need to talk about fucking screenwriting. Sorry, never mind. Back to Transformers.
No, talk away on anything you like. I'm
All
enjoying
right.
the hell out of this. So.
Okay, great. With 3 act structure, it helps me. It really behooves me to just kind of have end goals. Like, this is what I want to happen at the end of Act 2. This is what I need for the ending of the movie. This is what I need for the end of Act 1. So the fact that the brand team and our execs had goals for us was amazing. So it was a simultaneous, what do we want and what do everybody above us want? And that's how we ended up getting to a place where it was like, we need, for, obviously, like spark armor, we need to highlight and platform spark armor in a natural way, and that needs to come from the Allspark in some way. We already, they had, by the time I had arrived, they had already cleared using Cheetor as the guardian of the Allspark. And so that was already in play, and that was already approved of, so it was natural to sort of think, well, like, we gotta take it. And what is Megatron's goal with the Allspark? It is to create the perfect Decepticon, and so Starscream in Starscream fashion must also try to do that and horribly fail because he's Starscream. Or he just isn't. He doesn't have the right. I don't want to say he's foolish or an idiot, but it's just like, there was a lot of discussion in the room that the life that the Allspark would create when funneled through a user would kind of reflect the user. And so it was natural to think whatever Starscream made was going to be really messed up, be it Scraplets or something else. And it just so happened that, like, Scraplets came up in discussion, and it was like, oh, those are perfect. Let's just use those.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. Like, they actually are Starscream's children in that regard.
Yeah, in a weird, fucked up way. Absolutely. In his impatience, and because obviously, maybe if given a more time and research, Acid Storm could have done something better with the Vector Sigma to help the Allspark. But like, he was impatient and wanted them now, and here we go.
But at that time in the show, we all said things like the episode Parlay, which was, of course, the one where poor old Slipstream kicks the bucket. Leading to Windblade. Basically, Windblade's kind of whole mini arc in the rest of the up until like the start of season 3, really, where she's got that thing with Bludgeon, and then we've got the Autobots going into space, and so the best thing in the world, which is Grimlock and RC, but they're just the utter joy. Whoever came up with that, just so you know.
Once again, group effort.
As someone who was coming off the IDW comics where hyper-violent, weapony RC is a thing, and how just like, let's just make her a gun nut. It's fantastic. And she's hanging out with Grimlock and me and dinosaurs. It's a whole thing. So
great.
I was smiling the whole time.
It's like we made it just for you.
Yes. You said, like, there's a guy on Twitter called Irish Paleo, and we're just going to give him this.
Yeah, I'm in the room and I'm like, I just have a feeling that this is what this guy needs right now.
Well, to be fair, the Cyberverse kind of turned into that in general.
Oh, cool. I'm so happy.
So, like, I like I said, it was the bravest. I count it as the bravest Transformers show. It is basically, for me, the TV equivalent of Mord Meets the Eye season. Like late season 1, season 2. Yeah. You have moments that are equivalent to Megatron becoming an Autobot and staying an Autobot. You have moments that stand out. In terms of characterization, in terms of especially something I'm really interested in is work within the 10-minute format. Yeah, because it was the first action-based Transformer show, and certainly the first serialized that had to deal with those kind of limitations. I really want to get into season 3 in some depth, but what effect was having the 10 minutes? Did that lead to tighter writing, or was it more constricting?
It was particularly difficult for me because I had, not having really worked in animation before. So the execs at Randolph, not being able to read my Young Justice episode, could only read like a spec feature that I had. So they were reading a 105-page script. And Young Justice was a 22-minute, and the scripts are, they're Young Justice. They run a little long. So that ended up being like 30 or so pages. And to the guys' credit, they knew that I would need time to be able to like understand the format, and that's why I'm the fourth in line. They let me watch the process for 1, 2, and 3, so that by the time I got to 4, hopefully I got a good handle on it. But as with the other guys in the room, I think you eventually learn to love it. because having less pages and less time to tell the story, you suddenly strip down the story down to its bare minimum, and you're like, I can only get away with the bare essentials, and I need to make sure those bare essentials are as good as they fucking can be. And the term we used a lot was cut out the shoe leather. Like, just cut out all the leather that you don't need and leave the shoe be.
So would you say it took you a while to adjust to that, or once you saw the process, was it easy enough to actually?
I mean, I don't want to toot my
the
own.
wrong word,
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I did pretty good.
No one else is going to do it. Do it.
No, I think I got it, and I think there are in it. Moving on from Cyberverse, I've written for also 11 minutes and also 22, and there's always a piece of me that's like, God, this would be. I know how to write this as an 11-minute easier than I know how to write 22. Actually, you know what? I wrote for Sam Raimi's 50 States of Fright, and that's a Quibi show, and Quibi is meant to be short films. And I remember having meetings with these execs about, they were talking up, they were kind of trying to, as though I was going to be scared that I would have to write a short film, like trying to talk it down of like, it's not a big deal, we'll work with you to get the pages down. And I was like, oh, no, I've got this. You need this to be 11 minutes. I have fucking got this. I am your gal. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. No, that's a very good answer. But, and I'm glad Transformers is leading you forward in life. But said the nerdiest thing ever. But so, like I said, I really want to talk about season 3 because,
of course,
how the hell did this happen, and 2, did you get away with it?
I know.
Because there, at the moment, one thing, like, I don't know if you've ever heard the show. Please don't. We say terrible things because it's the internet. But one thing we're very aware of is the fact that the brand is becoming quite. I wouldn't say conservative, but it's becoming very focused on, we're doing the nostalgic hit. We're hitting people with the nostalgic. These are the characters we're doing.
Yeah, it's completely fair to say that for most 40-year-old franchises. Like, the gut instinct is to do what works and what's always been known to work, for sure.
And while like at season 2, I had some very brave moments in it, I would say they're more along what a series like Transformers Prime was doing in its season 1, which were, okay, we know you're watching, and we're going to put in something that is a bit more challenging. Season 3 just didn't care. Season 3 just, everything went out, like, Quinty Son Starscream, fuck it, why not?
Yeah,
Lugnut and Hot Rod being the main duo for about half of it.
Yeah, I wish we could get shirts that just said, fuck it, do it.
Yeah, do it. Well, you can, I'll get them made up if you want. But, like, things like sidelining Optimus and Bumblebee in a show where they were changing the name of the series to Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I really want to know how it came about.
Once again, I would be remiss before I said anything to say it is the basic gist of what season 3 turned into is, once again, the genius of the room, and I will attribute much of it to Randolph and his craziness. Luckily, his craziness lined up right with my obsession with the Matrix, and like once he started running, I was like, I got this. Like I am 100% behind this. Yeah, no, I like, fun sidebar, like I wrote Matrix fan fiction as a teenager. Like that's how I started writing. And so when Cyberverse started to head into this direction, I was just so excited. And I think it if I recall correctly, the craziness that came out of Randolph in the room was coming from a place of, we really don't want to repeat ourselves, and we don't want to repeat the things we've seen. And like, to a degree, we know that the only way Cyberverse is going to stand on its own 2 feet when you compare it to other moments in the franchise is by making it something you've never seen before, which is, of course, a huge challenge in something that is 40 years old and has taken all the forms that it has taken. But it really did come from a place of like, we don't want to repeat ourselves and we don't want to be bored. And I think we were able to do this because the other people on the other end also were excited by what we were saying and wanted to make a good and unique show as well. And I remember when the quintessence were coming up, I don't remember how if we asked permission or what, but once we started saying quintessence, or excuse me, quintessons. We decided in the room we were going to say quintessence, but that was a whole conversation that we had.
I have been listening to people complain about that for about a month. So thank you.
And I feel like Gavin pulled a Gavin and probably leaned back in his chair and was like, if we don't say quintessons, people are going to complain. But our discussion ultimately came to like, it's quintessence, so excuse me, I'm gonna say quintessence. But once we started asking around or kicking back the concept of quintessence, I feel very strongly that our execs were equally excited about the idea of using them. It was a fun, perhaps unique, perhaps not, but a fun situation where we were geeking out about what we were coming up with, and then on the exec side, they were also geeking out. And I'll give a shout out to our execs, Michael Hauser and Kate Crownover, who kind of like come season 3 were definitely participating. Like the hand of the exec was always there, but they were also like it was more like they were winding us up and letting us go versus trying to keep us back. Because I think at that point, I hope they trusted us to come up with cool shit, and here we are.
Oh, you did all right. You did all right, Neil.
Yeah, I did okay, I would say. Yeah. I mean, Gavin was also a huge fan of the movie, of the animated movie, and Zach and Dan have a long background of working on many Transformers shows, so they were very interested in not repeating themselves. And Randolph was hired because he was he was hired because he's very talented and had a very good pitch, but also working for him was that he was an outsider kind of to Transformers. He wasn't a fan, and he could come at it from the angle of like, explain the Allspark to me again, and we would, or Gavin would do the best that Gavin was capable of, and Zach would explain, and Randolph, being an outsider, would have the ability to be like, that sounds very strange, or that's very complicated. And like, how can we do something that is, utilizes these assets but does it in a way that like is palpable to old fans and new fans.
I was thinking at it there as you were saying, like, I would say the sort of moment where I'd say season 3 became a bit of a wake-up call, because it starts off fairly standard, it has to be said. Like, it's Autobots versus Decepticons fighting for home planet, blah blah blah. Was Drift. Where did the idea for that come from? I don't know if you have, like, I don't like it, and I'm sure you've gotten familiar with it by now, but like, Drift has been the quintessential bad guy, good guy, samurai knockoff for about a decade now, and you just went, nah.
So that came about, so in writing, there are moments where you're going to put the cart before the horse, and like I said, you have the end goal in mind before you know how you're going to get there. So that was a situation where we absolutely knew that somebody in the Autobot side needed to betray the Autobots and reveal themselves as a Decepticon. And we went through the long list of characters we had and characters that could have been made if we had the budget, but we just went through the long list. And ultimately, it was because Drift has this long history of being that samurai, and particularly has this history with Hot Rod, thanks to More Than Meets the Eye. And it was kind of came from the fact that we knew Hot Rod was going to be the one to take out this traitor and sacrifice himself. That's where it was like, oh, the relationship we could have fun with and manipulate would be with Drift, even though, admittedly, Drift does not have the most screen time out of all the characters.
No, but you did, like, literally murder shipping. Like, shipping died that day. It was and also the fact that there was a connection to More Than Meets the Eye.
I remember watching that hit Tumblr and just going like, I know.
But the fact that now I know there's actually we were thinking More Than Meets the Eye when we were doing that, just like, oh no, it's even worse.
I certainly was. I certainly was angling on that.
I think the only thing would be worse if he'd murdered Ratchet first, but...
if Drift looked at Ratchet and was just like, I hate you so much, punched him, shot him in the face, and then was like, and you too, Rod, sorry. Sorry, I went away there for a second, but like, hang on.
Just like, I have to, for some reason, I really need to hurt this guy.
Yeah, for some reason, I need to make other people cry, so if you'll excuse me.
But, so... it's not just unusual in what it does, but it's also got a kind of an unusual structure, because it's essentially what I'd call a 8 to 12 episode miniseries that leads into another miniseries. That leads into a couple of movies as well. I'd say there's at least 2 or 3 movies in this season. What led to the shaking up? What, before it was relatively standard, serialized but standalone episodes, and this was continuous.
I think that was just a matter of the format. Not the 11-minute format, but the format of the season was actually much more fluid in nature than we understood it to be. So once everybody was kind of happy with season 2, there was discussions from up above, like, oh, we could do more episodes, and how would we like those structured? And that turned into like the mini movies and mini arcs that are in season 3. It was just this natural, like, we would like more. Go ahead, kid. Go crazy.
I just feel like someone took off the leashes and just watched the madness ensue. But so in that case, like, I don't like. I'm just trying to get, like, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm still trying to get my head around a lot, like, simple things like bringing Clobber up to the main cast. Like, before she was very secondary. Yeah. And now she's the main character. She switches sides.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fun situation of, for something like Transformers, which is, again, has a legacy of 40 years behind it, and has, an endless list of characters and iterations of those characters. It, like, how you choose who your main cast is will become a mix of who do we as fans want, who does the execs want for their reasons, and then who do we want, who will the audience appreciate. And then Clobber was one of those beautiful ones where we just enjoyed writing her so much that it was like, please can we have her? can she be the main? Awesome. Yeah. No, she ended up being fantastic and complete. Like, again, doing the relationship with her and Hot Rod, it just worked really, really well. I'm so happy to hear it.
Yeah, I'm so glad she changed sides, because I was like, I don't want them to stop being friends. But then, in a similar vein, the thing with Soundwave, where he suddenly, the antagonism goes for him, between him and Hot Rod, and a lot of barriers are broken down in this series. Also, I'm assuming you had something to do with Striker being in this, or Alpha Strike.
Alpha Strike.
But
yeah. I mean, it was a beautiful moment in the room when I was told that everybody involved in the room and higher up wants more female Transformers. And so when the opportunity arose to pitch out, like, because there's obviously a budget to how many characters we can build per season. So when we were finally being able to, like, pitch new ones to build, she was, like, on the top of my list. She and Obsidian. I love Obsidian. Even though he's in, like, 2 or 3 episodes of Beast Machines. I love that guy.
Yeah. His reputation exceeds his appearance. I think he appeared in the comics more by the end of it.
Oh, damn. I pitched...
he's in Talala 1? Yeah, he's in Talala 1.
Excellent. But yeah, Alpha Strike, I was happy to be the one to be like, please.
I'm not leaving until she's in.
Look how cool she is. Look how beautiful and strong and amazing. Yeah.
I've tied myself to this chair, and I'm not leaving.
I mean, I did a similar thing with Clobber, too. I will happily say I was the first one to suggest that Lugnut should be gender bend, which is a whole nother... Gender bending characters is a whole nother can of worms that I don't know if we want to get into, but...
No, feel free if you want to get into it, because... I was going to say, like, what was Skywarp a conscious idea, or was that simply a reuse of assets?
No, Skywarp was a conscious decision, yeah. It's interesting because, again, Transformers having this endless list of characters to pull from, but inevitably, because it was a show created in the 80s, at the time of the 80s, most characters are, of course, male. And, that is changing, and was even changing in the 80s, like, for sure. But when you are faced with the catalog to pull from, you have to make the decision of, like, do we want to create original female characters or platform female characters that might not necessarily have been platformed before, or do we want to gender bend some? And in certain cases, it was just an easier fight, or not a fight, but it was an easier discussion to have, to say, these are the characters that we know are in the show. can we, the ones that we already know that we don't have to argue about or have further discussions of, can we possibly gender bend them just for the sake of having a more diverse cast? And I can get on my high horse about gender bending characters like that, because to me, as long as the character's maleness or femaleness or gender identity in any way, as long as that their character isn't innately tied to their identity, then changing the gender should not be so much of a problem, because they're who they are as a character need not change.
Here's a genuine question then. I mean, if we were being as forward as we can be, are there many Transformers characters where the gender is tied into who they are? I mean, ironically, I would say more with the female cast than the male, but
yeah. No, I only say that just to because I'm repeating my overall discussion on the concept, gender previously established characters, be them male or female. But I mean, you could argue maybe Optimus, because he's so paternal that you wouldn't want to gender bend him in any way. Yeah, stuff like that, where you're like, no, this is a father figure, or this is a mother figure, etc., etc.
Yeah, I was going to say Megatron, but they kind of did that once.
Yeah, as I learned
I mean,
Twitch stream.
I think it's hilarious, but not everyone does. Still have to buy that toy. But really want that toy. But so season 3 develops on. Was the transition to Bumblebee's character, was that more Hasbro driven, or was that on your side, we've wrapped up our big apocalyptic arc?
I mean, we had a feeling that the show might end with 3 seasons. It wasn't confirmed at any point, but with just knowing that feeling, it seemed very natural to redirect the attention back on Bumblebee, and particularly Bumblebee's relationship to Windblade. And there was something poetic about how Windblade in season 1 is helping put him back together, and then he is literally doing the same thing for her in season 3 in a different way. But
no, yeah. But no, I actually think that was a. See, I'll be honest, I do prefer the first half, just because, again, I think it is absolutely insane. But we've all, that part of the story also has a gigantic Cthulhu Titan, so it's not all bad.
We tried to have fun all throughout, baby.
Oh yes, and Thunder Howl, the weird night dog.
Yes.
But of course, then it ended, and it ended in a way that broke the fandom for about a week. Certainly the UK fandom, because the UK fandom was very deeply entrenched in the comics. And Megatron, the whole arc of Megatron coming back from the alternate realities and everything else with Astro Train, it happened so fast there wasn't time for a lot of discussion to happen, because the whole show aired in a fortnight here.
Right.
Which was something else, I'll be honest. It was also lovely to just sit down and watch TV in the evening. But it's been ages since I've done that. But you bring in the idea of Megatron, the other Megatron, I think Megatron X, the credits called him. And you bring in the idea of the perfect Decepticons, which are obviously Tarn.
Obviously.
Which you have no idea what happened. I was sitting there watching TV, and there was just a little schematic on the screen that Dead End was looking at, I think. And it was rotating, and I was just like, oh, what?
Tarn?
No, because no one believed it. No one believed he'd ever make an appearance in fiction, because he's for
Tarn.
a lot of fans, he's a horrible, monstrous human being who
absolutely
far too many people apologize for, in my opinion. But I love him to death, but I love him because he's a horrible, terrible thing. But obviously people going how do you translate that down? And I thought you took a very interesting angle of the perfect Decepticon happens to be this guy.
I mean, I'll take credit for that. No, we were in the room discussing Megatron X makes the perfect Decepticon, and I literally Googled Tarn, and I was like, he needs to look like this. Obviously, this is the perfect Decepticon.
Look at his face. It's literally the thing.
Yeah. Look.
But something we didn't get to really delve into it. I don't know if there was an writer choice or a TV animation choice, but in that last scene where after everything's wrapped up, Soundwave and Shadow Striker are among the Autobots.
Mm-hmm.
Was that on your side of things, or was that just the animator going like, we're wrapping up?
I will say that I think that was an ingenious move by the animation team. Yeah, that is an ingenious move by the animation team, who I'm sure was just riffing like jazz style off of what we were writing, which was Megatron X is dispatched, Megatron is unknown. Obviously, these Decepticons who have already worked with Autobots previously would be here for this moment, and I think it's an instance in which the animation team definitely pluses what is on our pages, so that it's this beautiful moment where it's like, oh shit, they are. It's not that Cybertron is united, and it's not that it's all fixed and all of the bad blood is gone, but it is a new sunrise where everybody gets to participate in the happy ending for at least a little bit. So
it's not like
what they did.
It's not like you see Skybite or something sitting there. It's the ones we know who've had a personal relationship with these guys.
Absolutely.
But yeah, is there anything in season 3 you're particularly proud of, or we'll say the show as a whole? But like I said, I'm kind of obsessed.
Right.
Short of sticking in transgender RC, I'm not sure what else I'd wanted you to do. But if you could stick her in sometime at something and have her murder everyone, that would be fantastic.
I mean, what is my goal in life but to accurately represent a part of my life that I don't generally see, which is the queerness of it all. But let's see. I am particularly proud of Laserbeak. So it was. I can already hear the guys groaning because I was like on it with like, I want the cassettes in this more than I want children, which is fair to say. I don't want kids, but like I want the cassettes in it more than I could possibly express to you. So to get Laserbeak in was a huge win, and to get Laserbeak not only in but like featured heavily as like to even have the origin story of how the two of them met was just beautiful. So I'm happy that could happen. I'm overall I'm just proud of all of it overall. But like I enjoyed writing Perceptor. Once we figured out like Perceptor's voice in our version of things, I really just loved writing him. And yeah, I mean, we got a Titan on Titan fight. Like shit, dude.
That's a first, by the way. That's the first in animation. So well done there.
Yeah, no, we could feel it too. The heavy responsibility of knowing that's what this was gonna be.
I mean, technically, the Prime Wars trilogy did it as well, but I would say you're the first one who did it in a good show. For anyone who doesn't know, I saw a camera movement there, and I'm just gonna say yes, that was basically everyone's reaction to that series. I
think one of the proudest things about season 3 is the fact that we were able to go so off the beaten path and do something that is, arguably fairly unique in the franchise. But I think one of my favorite things that we were able to create, like together, like as a group, was having Autobots and Decepticons interact with each other, not in just fighting, and just having because there's just there's the overall threat of the quintessence, but we were able to find moments where we could have just like, Alpha Strike and Grimlock, like as the big two tanks of the teams, like bonding, like moments like that I'm like, I'm so proud that these exist and that they exist in an 11-minute format, and that, not only are kids able to watch like lifelong enemies kind of reach across the aisle and work together, but also it's fun for longtime fans to see those fun interactions. Yeah, no,
I have been a long-time fan, and I have loved how fictionally, I think that the franchise is in the most creative place it's ever been at the moment.
Thank you.
And you play a big part in that. You really did play a big. Season 3, I thought, was a wonderful encapsulation of both what Hasbro's willing to do and the kind of people they're bringing in. Like, they're bringing in people like yourself who are creative, who are fresh to the franchise, who are just not trapped in the same 5 thoughts.
Right. No, I mean, I'm going to live off this serotonin you're giving me for like the next month. I want you to know.
I'm glad to contribute to the ongoing survival in this period of darkness for us all.
Right.
But like, lots of stuff made it into the show. Obviously, lots of stuff got cut from the show because that's the way these things happen. Is there anything that sort of hit the cutting room floor that you kind of wish had made it in, or any characters you never really got to use?
I mean, Frenzy and Rumble, I love you two so much in my heart of hearts.
I'm not going to ask where you stand on the debate because that's a terrible debate.
No. Every time I have to look it up. Rumble is blue and Frenzy is red, in my humble opinion. And I always have to look up like the FW. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like slightly dyslexic, and I'm just dyslexic enough that that's like a problem for me.
I make it more difficult for people pointing out one's black and one's purple.
How dare you? How dare you?
I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. I just called him Frumble, to be honest.
Fair. There is a scene that literally is on the cutting room floor, or not a scene. I think this is just a couple lines, but it's in Gavin's episode Ghost Town. So when Windblade steals the Allspark to reawaken Croatan, and the B story, of course, is Starscream having therapy, which I just love that the Autobots would provide him with free healthcare and free like in that way. That like this is the way Autobots handle prisoners. And there is a line where I think it's like the second scene that he's having a scene with Teletran X, and it opens with Starscream saying, "It's useless. I'm hopeless. Megatron always said so." And that wasn't even like a line from me. I think Gavin came up with that line. Someone else came up with that line, and I was just like, my heart just like grew 3 sizes. I was like, absolutely, this is a beautiful line, and we must have this in the show. And I think it made it all the way to getting recorded and animated, but it unfortunately for time had to get cut because that episode was already just jam-packed.
Oh, now I'm sad.
Yeah, it's like know that it exists somewhere.
It happened in between the scenes.
Yeah. But I said this on like a little Twitch stream I already did, but I had a huge like pitch for like a Starscream redemption arc. And I've seen the fandom kind of take it and run with it. I want to reiterate, like, this was a very brief discussion. Like, it was not on the table for very long, but it was in my heart always.
Otherwise known as the entire Transformers fandom with Starscream. Yeah,
I mean, it was a situation where, like, I had a very strong, not case, but I had strong feelings about this, and I had kind of figured out how I would have done it. So I pitched it to the room. They gladly listened, and then they pointed out the very truthful, honest thing, which is like, look, we've platformed Starscream a lot, and while this is a good story, there might not be room because we have other stories to tell with everybody else. And I'm like, I know, but please. But that was going to be a situation where like I wanted him to like emerge out of the quintessent body totally fine, which absolutely makes no sense. Like, they were like, how? Yes. And I was like, just go with me on this. Like, it just happened. And he would have had amnesia and kind of like accidentally wandered the core of Cybertron or something and ended up with a shard of Windblade. So Bumblebee would have encountered him at some point to get this shard. And what I really wanted out of that was just to show somebody as gremlin-like and, you know, as messed up as Starscream, when put in a much healthier environment, even he can start to get better emotionally and mentally, but also just as like an overall, he could become a better person. Like, not to 180 his character by any means, but just to show that there was room for growth, and he had room for growth that you didn't know was there, and given a healthy environment, it might get fostered. That was my little pitch that made into the room for all of like 5 minutes.
Well, all I can say is you really need to be doing some comic work at this stage, because you're basically just writing the comics.
Right.
But I mean that in a good way. Like, pitch a script, please. Yeah, so like, any characters or anything you thought, oh, I'd love to use these guys, we didn't have the budget, or they just never made it in? Because I know I've seen people ask about Knockout, but everyone asks about Knockout. I know. I also feel very terrible about not getting Knockout in there. I mean, were you familiar with Knockout at all for the show? Because, like you said, you weren't like from the background of being a Transformers fan.
Like, look, I'm gonna brag, but like, I had a 4.2 GPA in high school, and I graduated college with honors. So once I got the job, it was like, let's fucking deep dive into this shit. And I spent about a couple weeks there trying to read and watch as much as I possibly could. I ended up reading a lot of episode synopses because I can read faster than I can watch a 22-minute, but like it's hilarious. When I got the job, I texted my friend who grew up on G1, or I called him, and he was my first call. Like, I didn't call my parents, I didn't call my significant other, I called him to say I had gotten the job because I knew he would be the most excited for me. And he and I sat down and we watched a bunch of G1, and then I went off for like my 2 weeks to sabbatical to just like read as much as I could. So I was aware of Knockout, and it would have been delightful to get him in, but unfortunately there's just no room. Gosh, I rambled so long. Please remind me what we're characters that I have a heart for. I was pitching more Beast Wars characters, of course. Like, it would have been cool to see Dinobot in anything ever. I also was very I would have loved to get Transmutate in there, because Transmutate I think to me is kind of my cornerstone of Transformers, because even as a kid, like I remember watching Beast Wars in kindergarten, so I was so young, but to see an episode like Transmutate, even I at that age was like, this is special, and this is good, and this is deep on a level that most of what I watch is not. So Transmutate is quite important to me in that way. So I was pitching her a lot. Again, Obsidian, just because look at him. Ain't he cool? Wouldn't it be great to animate him?
Oh,
yeah. And like,
he makes for terrible toys, but he's a great character.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think I have a Jetstorm toy from Beast Machines that I got at like Frankensons, and I was like, God, how do I put one?
Whatever you say about the Beast Machines series, the toy line, it's a bit more of a different animal.
For sure. Gosh, what else? Sure, the long list. Like, honestly, getting Whirl in was such a beautiful win that I was like, all right, cool, Whirl's in. I mean, I'm such a More Than Meets the Eye fan. It would have been great to get like Ultra Magnus in the style More Than Meets the Eye, because I know Gavin being a big animated movie fan was also very much in the camp of Ultra Magnus, but we were kind of coming at it from two very different angles.
I want him to have a tiny man inside him.
Yeah, you don't understand. And I really want him to be like Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Gavin's just like, what are you talking about? I'm like, trust me.
Oh, God, I've never made that connection before, but it's totally true.
Yes, there it is.
He totally is Holt. Oh, God. I've had it with Michael Ironside for years, but now he has to be Holt.
He's Captain Holt. It would have been cool to get Cyclonus and Tailgate. At one point, Dan and I were very much in the Alita 1 camp. It would have been amazing to get Alita 1. Both Dan and I really liked the way Lightbright looked. Because as far as we can tell, Lightbright didn't really have much of a history or personality.
She was brand new for the Windblade series. She appeared in a quick little panel, and she had a small role in the late second season RID and the Optimus Prime book, where basically she was the first Transformers wedding, I think, ever. But she ended up marrying Cindersaur. Was it Cindersaur?
Dope.
Someone who looked like a cross between a dragon and a mantis. But
what a beautiful couple.
Yes, they were lovely. He set things on fire. She got married at Christmas. Engaged at Christmas. They got engaged in the Christmas issue. That was it.
Was that one written by Margaret?
Yes, that was Margaret one. She did it in sort of an old Lang Syne kind of way.
Yeah.
With the ghost of Bumblebee leading Starscream to be a better person for 5 minutes.
Genius. Lightbright got pitched around a lot. God, what was it? I had a thought. It was fun. It was just such a beautiful show to work on, because like you would say, I would really love to work on the Insecticons, and then that would happen, and you would be like, what? Thank you, I'll take this. But yeah.
So what you're saying is, like, if you had your way, it would just basically be everyone.
I mean, like, if with a long enough, if you had infinite seasons, if you had infinite seasons and infinite budget, you could get to everybody. Like, because it was because of the 11-minute format, and because of like the 18-episode seasons or 26-episode seasons, like you had to have really hard discussions of like, is there time for this? We know it's good, we know we love it, but is this shoe leather? or is it not? And that would, that's where a lot of really fun ideas that ultimately could not exist in the format we had to go to rest.
Also, during this, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, I need to get her writing or pitching a More Than Meets the Eye cartoon. Like, just do that. I've been trying to find some. Just do that, please. Just find someone and just hound them.
I know.
If they did that in animation, I'd be so happy. But
it would be spectacular. Oh gosh.
I also want the RID to get one because I loved RID as well, but for very different reasons.
Yeah,
politics
for
versus
sure.
character. I always said.
Fair.
But yeah, so obviously Cyberverse is wrapped up. Will you be trying to stick with Transformers if we go forward, or
I mean, if they'll have me.
Are you?
If they'll have me, I would gladly continue to participate as much as they would allow. Of course, it's a beautiful it's a beautiful franchise, and again, like, I'm so lucky, and I think about this often, where like the thing that really was the thing that made my career start happening. Because, like, for the longest time when people would ask me in, like, general meetings, like, what is your goal with writing? I would say I would love to be able to buy groceries with money I got from writing words. And then Cyberverse allowed me to do that, and then opened up so many more avenues from that. But it's also, like, not only is it this thing that gave me so much, it is a franchise that is so old with so many characters that have taken on so many different iterations and forms. Like, it's a very loved and nurturing piece of media to dive into, which, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have Star Wars, which is heavy and deep, but it's scary and quite toxic. Not to say that other fandoms aren't more toxic or not than Star Wars, but, like, it was honestly the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, don't worry, we've got plenty of that. They just
I'm sure
they get their little
all
corner. They live in their corner, and we all ignore them.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. There was this beautiful moment in realizing, like, it took me a while to understand Optimus. This is a good example. This is a micro of the macro of my experience with Transformers, where I was maybe 2 or 3 weeks into working in the room, and Nat, my fiance, and I were kind of just rewatching the Michael Bay movies just for the thrill and the spectacle of it all.
Murder Prime.
Yeah, and it's the first movie, and we're doing the hero shot of Optimus transforming for the first time, and he at one point inhales, like he breathes, which is a genius moment of who knows on that feature film, but he actually breathes, and Natalie said, "Oh, he's alive." And that phrasing clicked in my brain in a very strange way, where I suddenly was like, he's alive. They're all alive. And I suddenly imagined my friend who I watched G1 with, like, being 10 years old and looking to Optimus as a paternal father figure, as a real living, breathing father figure. And suddenly the rush of that legacy hit me as like, of course, I'm a fangirl. I know how important fandoms are to people, but suddenly having realized, oh, this is something that not only did I grow up with in the very small way that I did, but, like, my friends grew up with, and my friends' friends, my friends' fathers and mothers grew up with. That was the moment where I was like, oh shit, this is profound and serious, and I am so lucky to be able to participate in it in any way I get to. Sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying I like Transformers.
Please keep me. So, what are you doing next? Because I was just doing there's a Kickstarter cartoon you're working on at the moment.
Oh,
or you were working Legacy of Vox.
Oh my god, something? I had a horror moment of being like, you didn't see my Kickstarter from college, did you? Please don't see that.
I'm now Googling. Hang on.
No.
If I don't find it now, I'm going to find it later and message
it. But I am working on Legend of Vox Machina, which is a adaptation of the podcast and streaming D&D campaign Critical Role, which is another.
I've heard the name. Sam's Story, a film by Mae Catt.
Shut up! Shut your mouth.
Hang on. No, keep talking. This is great.
I'm gonna hang the fuck up if you play it.
This is great. 2014. Yeah,
it was my college thesis film, and
that's a very good piece of art.
It's a decent film. It's all right. My fiance's looking at me from across the room like, "No, you're talking about that." I'm like, "Yes." I'm dying inside.
Oh, it's great. No, I'm in love with that. Fourth in the series of unique films written and directed by Mae Catt.
Don't.
Very nice art. There's some very nice art here.
All right, I'm going to talk about Critical Role.
Ooh, stretch goals. What are the stretch goals?
Oh my god.
Oh, this is great.
This is some Irish nonsense right now, isn't it? You're really offending my very weak West Coast Californian sensitivities.
Oh, if it gets Irish nonsense, my mother is coming round to make you a cup of tea and ask, "Are you grand? Was he a bother?" Oh, he wasn't a bother, was he? No, he is fine. He means well. He means well. He's not bright, but he means well.
Critical Role, yes. It's this very popular, extremely long ongoing D&D campaign with very talented people. And I think it's famous. It famously is like the Kickstarter that made the most money on Kickstarter ever with $11 million. So very fun. And that's also a bit of a dream come true because I did a lot of D&D in college, and it was a means for which my friends who, we all moved away from each other were able to continue staying in touch. So that's cool. I'm working on things I can't talk about because they haven't been announced yet, as well as at least what has been announced is the 50 States of Fright show, which is going to be on Quibi. I know. I'm so sorry. It's another streaming service, but I swear to God, it'll be worth it. Because Quibi's whole philosophy was like, what if we do short films but give them big budgets? So they were shooting my short in Vancouver, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go up for one shoot date, which is about as much of a film shoot as I can handle due to my intense film student baggage. And to see the budget of the fact that there were people who would find me wherever I was and be like, "Do you need a chair?" And then I would be like, "No, I'm okay." And then they would bring me a chair anyway. I was just like, what kind of level of success and luxury is this? On top of the beautiful budget of real stars like our short stars Ming-Na Wen and Kieran Allen, which is just insane to imagine. So I've been working on that, and I think that premieres, I want to say April 19th. April 14th through the 16th, you can see the episode I wrote. Yeah. Well,
people, if you're listening, keep an eye out for that.
If you like horror, come on, why not?
Yeah, why not? Like you said, you're working on stuff you can't talk about, and when is Vox Machina due out, do you know? Or is that still it's in production, it'll be out when it's out?
It is in production. It will be out when it's out.
Right.
Yeah, you can catch up with it on Critical Role. They have a website, and they have a podcast, and they have a YouTube version. You can every Thursday the D&D campaigners actually continue their campaign, and you can live stream and watch it. It's delightful.
Well, I've heard of it, but I've never sat down to it because I live in the middle of nowhere for a lot of my life, so trying to find someone to D&D with has always been something of a struggle. Really want to get. I've been wanting to get into it. Yeah, I've been. A friend of mine once said he wanted to do a podcast on a D&D campaign, and it never really kicked off. But I might nudge him now because what else are we doing?
Yeah, no, I mean I had just started a campaign. I think we were on our third session when the lockdown hit, and so we're all scrambling to figure out Zoom to keep going because it's so hard just to get started. The hardest part is getting started. Once you get the ball rolling, you're good. So we can't lose this momentum we have.
Right. Well, on that note, May, it is quite late here, and I'm quite tired. So I'm just going to say thank you. This has been an unexpected joy. I saw you on Twitter, and I thought you sounded interesting, and you're fantastic. You're absolutely fantastic. So enjoy that serotonin.
Can't see it, podcast, but I'm fanning myself with the serotonin. It's delightful.
She doesn't know how chemicals work. It's not her fault.
I'm a writer, sir, not a chemist.
Is there anything you'd like to shill, or how people can contact you if they'd like to, or Twitter or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's at Mae Catt. It's my name, Maecatt. I don't bite. You can send DMs if I don't reply. It's just because I haven't seen them or I can't. I'm also on Tumblr, and I'm on Instagram. You can reach me or find me or whatever. It'd be cool. I have like a lot of Tumblr followers, and I only have like 800 Twitter followers. So I'm just like, I've done this. I should have done it at the same time. I've built my audience.
And I would recommend going through the Tumblr because when I was doing research for this, I found interesting pictures of you at work in a Spider-Man costume.
Yes, I am so like I reached what a level of success that I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy my Spider-Man costume that I've been wanting to buy for years. And
kicking
God
in the
bless
door.
him.
You can't stop me.
Yeah, here I am. I did it. Like I did a D23 panel with that on. It was amazing. So good.
Did anyone notice, or did you just play it really straight and just like, no, it's fine?
Well, I kind of tested the water, so I talked to my execs where I'm like, I was thinking of doing this, and like, God bless them, they were like, oh, you absolutely should. Because of course, there's always a piece of me that's like, am I being too much of a fan? And that is internalized self-loathing. That is not. There's nothing actually in the industry that has taught me to be ashamed of that piece of myself. It actually is the thing that comes most handy often is my nerdum and my unabashed affections towards these things. So when I look at a Marvel exec and I'm like, are you sure it'd be okay? And they're like, absolutely do it. I'll be disappointed now if you don't. It's magical. Oh, you know what? Can I do? I'm so sorry to keep you up, but can I do one little like last blast off?
Feel it.
Please, every fan out there who partakes in fan art and fan fiction, like, do it. Absolutely. Don't be like me and have, be, somewhat successful and have this internalized shame about it. Absolutely not. You shouldn't. Please write fan fiction. Please make fan art. Please love the thing you love as unapologetically as you want to. And understand that it is a tool by which you are enriching who you are and nourishing your talents. I would not be a professional screenwriter if I had not written so much Matrix fan fiction. It's an impossibility. It is a part of who I am, and it is a part of why I've gotten to the level I've gotten to. So please carry on.
Wise words from the creator of Sam's story there.
God damn it. I'm so livid about the idea of people seeing my secret college shame when I thought I was a director.
Well, there's videos I didn't mention, but there's videos on this Kickstarter.
If you you either edit this stuff out or you let me tell everybody who seeks this stuff out and watches, please understand I was 24. I was literally in college. I was learning, and it's fine. I guess it would be like my fiance's looking at me like it's okay. I'm like, I guess it is if people see these things. It's just like this weird baggage I have about no, college mate didn't exist.
She's not real.
College mate's gone. I just emerged from high school already having agents and talent and skills and a diploma magically.
I might still be reading the Kickstarter, and I may have just nearly wet myself over the last all the quotes about Mae Catt's work over the years, and the last one is this: "We love Mae, her parents."
Yeah. They do. They don't always understand what I do, but they do. They love me nonetheless. I remember my mom was asking about Transformers, and her wonderful, beautiful quote was so do they do that often? Transforming? Do they do that often? And I'm like, Mom, the show is called Transformers. Yes.
But less than you'd think. Right. Mae, thank you genuinely. You have made my week.
For sure.
You've
made mine.
Absolute joy.
Beautiful.
Aw, you're a wonderful liar. But guys, if you want to leave feedback about the show, or if you want to do anything, please send us an email at themoonbase2@gmail.com. And if you're on Patreon, this will be coming out a week early. So if you sign up, you'll get interviews a week early. We also got the extended comic show, which will have the random ass whatever we're reviewing at the time thing. It's probably going to be Atomic Robo, I think, for the next one, or Fear Agent, depending on where we are in the order of things. And yeah, you'll also get the extra Patreon show where we talk about general non-Transformers stuff. Most recent one was Spawn. Before that was Digimon.
Nice,
I'm trying to get one.
And let me
if I
clarify,
can think about that.
the nice was for Digimon.
Fair play. Good woman.
Right.
She's doing well.
Yes.
We approve of this woman.
Excellent.
40 minutes of me talking on my own about Digimon was something else, I'll tell you that much.
I would fucking listen to that. That sounds amazing. Like, I often get on my Digimon soapbox of like, you don't understand. Look how cool these character designs are. You want Charizard versus Greymon? Fuck off.
Oh, don't talk to me about that. Oh, why are people... The bloody death battle about that. I'm just like, why... He's going up against a living nuclear missile. No. Actually, he's going up against something that's scarier than a living nuclear missile. I was that guy. I used to do like, no, you don't understand the physics say blah, 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 blah. No.
On top of their living missiles that are also digital monsters. Like, they're not actually... Yeah. It's a computer. Like, God.
Yeah, and not a slave race as well. Not a slave race.
Yeah. Not animal... Like, not animal fighting? Yeah.
Yeah, just saying. Ash is a dick. But, oh dear.
Alright, get to bed.
I am, because I'm just like, my brain is actually firing up for Digimon rant, which happens.
Sorry.
It's a real thing. So I know what my dreams are going to be about. Right, Mae, again, thank you. You're absolutely fantastic. Guys, get us back any feedback you can, and we'll talk to you again. So take care.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You are now leaving